back here, WHIP Radio in Philadelphia. Former Philadelphia Philly, a beloved Philadelphia Philly, is making major news in the MLB playoffs. If you haven't seen it by now, well then guess what? Wake up and watch the postseason. Chase Utley had a dirty slide, in my opinion. It wasn't just a smart baseball play. I thought that there was some intent there to never touch the bag, and then he took out Ruben Tejada, ended his season as Tejada broke his leg. Dodgers come back and they beat the Mets to even up that series at 1 apiece. And then you have Game 3 tonight. Utley was suspended for 2 games by Joe Torre. He will appeal, and there's reports out right now that that appeal will not be heard today. So to shed a little light on this, we'll bring in former MLB pitcher, and that is Shawn Estes. Shawn, Zach, and Mike here. Welcome back to the program. How are you?
I'm doing good, guys.
Well, thank you for coming on, and we appreciate it. So you've seen the Utley play by now. Do you think it was dirty, or was this just a good baseball play?
Oh, man, it depends on how you look at it, man. I mean, yeah, he slid late. Is it dirty? I don't think there was intent to hurt the guy. I think it was a situation where we've seen a lot in baseball. Unfortunately, someone gets hurt as bad as Tejada did, and now all of a sudden, now we're going to make an example of the guy. It is a time when the stakes are pretty high. You're talking playoff baseball, and you're going to make the example of a guy that something happened that's happened a lot in baseball over the years, over the last 100 years, and it wasn't an illegal slide. You see it happen a lot. What happened is that Tejada, yes, there was intent to take the guy out. I mean, that's what he's supposed to do. You're trying to eliminate the double play there, and Tejada turned his back on the play, which you just don't do anyway, which made it a lot worse. Trying to spin, and Utley knew that going into it, that I'm going to try to take this guy out, but he didn't. He had already started to slide by the time Tejada had started to spin and turn his back to the play, which made it a lot worse. Put yourself in a pretty vulnerable position to get hurt. At the end of the day, yeah, the slide was late. Does it happen a lot? All the time. And I saw a situation in San Francisco a few years ago where Matt Holliday took out Marco Scutaro at second base and hurt him pretty good. Fortunately for the Giants, Scutaro was okay. There was no repercussions to that other than the fact that I think they might have drilled Holliday his next at bat, but they didn't suspend him. And so as long as I think you don't suspend a guy at this point. What you do is you change the rule for next year. You see what happens. You see you want to keep guys on the field. You don't want to put them in a vulnerable position, kind of like the Buster Posey situation. And you change the rule, but you don't suspend a guy at this time of the year and make an example out of him when this has happened quite a bit in Major League Baseball.
It has happened, and it's a big gray area. I thought it was a tackle and the slide was late. That's why I would classify it as dirty, but you're right. The rule does need to change because I heard Ed Coleman from WFAN talking about it this morning, and they're saying they're playing flag football with guys in equipment at the catcher spot, and then at second base, they're playing tackle football. So you're right. The rule does need to change, Shawn.
Well, and it did change at home because of the Buster Posey situation, but the guy that blew up Buster Posey didn't get suspended. He didn't have to miss time. Yeah, you heard about it a lot in the media, and he was blasted for the slide. And then you hear a lot of different sides to that argument. Like you're going to hear about the second base, like you're going to hear about the slide at second base without Leon Tejada. But I think the question is should the guy be suspended? No. I mean, not no. I mean, you just don't. It's ridiculous. You don't do that all of a sudden at this point of the year, at this point in time in baseball, in a playoff situation when the stakes are so high. You don't take away a guy, off. You don't take a guy off a roster regardless of how good he is or not. You just don't do that. You can't make an example of a guy at this point in time of the season. You go into the off season and you tweak the rule like you did with the Buster Posey situation. Now the catchers are obviously protected at home, and your guy at second base needs to be protected now.
I will say, even though I thought it was a late slide, I'm fine if he plays these games and if he wins his appeal. I'm fine by that. But you were a pitcher in this league for many years. Let's say if they don't issue a warning tonight before the game, Utley has hit against Matt Harvey very well. Is there retaliation? If you were on that mound tonight and you're Matt Harvey and he comes up in the first inning, Chase Utley, are you thrown at him?
Well, that's the thing, is that that's how you take care of it. You know, you do it that way. You do it on the field. You let them know that we didn't appreciate the slide. You took out, our starting shortstop. You put us in a vulnerable spot now. We're a man down, and so you take care of it that way. You send the message that way. You don't throw at the guy's head, but you just, you send the message. And I think that Utley would be completely fine with that at this point, because he knows that, he doesn't want to hurt somebody. It's like a pitcher that I'm going to drill somebody, but I'm not going to just drill him. I'm going to hit him in the head, and I'm going to try to end his career right here. I don't think there's a pitcher around that would do that at this point in time intentionally. No, they may hit somebody, but are they going to try to end their career? No. So to me, the intent wasn't Utley's intent wasn't, I'm going to try to end this guy's season. This guy, he was trying to take out the guy at second base. He knew how difficult it was to hit Syndergaard. He knew how good he was pitching. He felt this might be their only chance to score a run, and he was going to play hard and get this and not give Tejada a chance to even make that throw to first base. Was he trying to break his leg? Absolutely not. So the intent was it was a hard baseball play. It was a late slide. Dirty? No. Because if Tejada doesn't get hurt, we're probably not having this conversation right now. But Utley, next time he comes up, would probably get drilled because of it. That's just the way that baseball. That's the way baseball's played right now. You don't suspend a guy in this situation.
We're talking to former MLB pitcher Shawn Estes. And again, Estes, as a former pitcher who was fortunate enough to pitch in 2 different postseasons, what's the difference between pitching in October and pitching in April, outside of obviously the stakes that come with pitching in both of those months?
Well, there's just a much higher, obviously intensity when you take the mound. I mean, it's you realize that you don't pitch well. If it's not an elimination game, your season's not going to be over. But every game is so important. The magnitude is, and you're pitching against the best team, one of the best teams in baseball. So you know that it's going to be a difficult task. So the adrenaline level's a lot higher. And that's been pretty amazing so far this postseason. I've seen a lot of these pitchers, first time in the playoffs, the young guys go out there and just pitch so well, because especially guys that are stuff guys, throw hard, have good velocity, good breaking stuff, to not want to overthrow and in that situation in a playoff game first time. And just be able to calm your nerves and be able to just settle in like they have, and pitch good, solid first innings. So that's the thing you look at, a guy like that, how are they going to pitch in the first inning before they finally start to settle in and the adrenaline calms down a little bit, their heart stops beating as fast. How are they going to do that first inning? And so far, with the Grom, Syndergaard, and, Keuchel, and, McHugh, and a lot of these young pitchers that we've seen, they've done such a good job of being able to control that adrenaline and go out there and pitch extremely well. So I don't know what's in the water nowadays, but it seems like these young kids have ice in their veins.
Well, you mentioned facing some of the best teams when it comes to October, and I completely agree. You pitched against the 97 Marlins in the postseason and the 2000 Mets in the postseason. Both of those teams went on to their respective World Series. Of those 2 batting orders, which one was harder to face?
That was so long ago. They were both pretty difficult. The reason why I mentioned how being young and being able to slow the game down and pitch well and control that adrenaline, because I like you mentioned, I have pitched in a playoff game, and I wasn't able to really control my adrenaline. That first inning was really difficult for me, and I had a tough time just kind of relaxing and allow myself to take it like just another game. I know mentally it was a little bit more challenging for me. So I don't think it mattered what lineup I was facing. when it came playoff time, I knew that first inning was going to be a tough one for me. But if I had to sit there and break down lineups, and I'm trying to remember who was in both lineups, I don't know. I think in '97, I was, I had pitched. I wasn't a rookie, but it was my first full season in the major league, so I felt that was a little bit more difficult of a lineup to face. The Marlins that year, they were loaded from top to bottom, and ended up going on and winning the World Series that year. So I would probably say the Marlins, just because in 2000 I was pitching at home at AT&T against the Met team. We had a lot of success at home, and I pitched well at home, so I just felt a lot more confident against that lineup, even though it didn't go as well as I was planned. But the Marlins lineup was pretty tough that year with Sheffield and Alou and Bonilla, Conine. Yeah, it was a pretty good lineup.
Even though you had an all-star year in '97, I know, like you were saying, you didn't have the best of the postseason start in the one game that you did get to pitch in '97. This is Harvey's first start tonight. Now, you talked about controlling that adrenaline. Harvey has a whole lot of talent, and we need to see how he's going to play tonight. But if you had to get on the phone with him and give him some advice on how to control those emotions, what would you say to him?
Well, I would say that you have to. You can't really put yourself in a situation where you don't. I would probably just tell them that just take it like another game. Prepare like you normally do. Understand that your adrenaline's going to be a little bit higher. Coming out that first inning, you're going to be a little bit more amped. The crowd's going to be a little more into the game. Accept that. But I tell 12-year-olds this, because I coach 12-year-old baseball. I tell them, because they get nervous at that age, and when the pressure gets a little bit higher, bases loaded situation, and you're pitching or you're even hitting, is that you got to breathe. You can't forget to breathe. I take deep breaths, calm yourself down. The game starts to speed up is what happens, and you get the ball and you throw it, and then you get it back and you throw it again, and before you know it, you walk the guy, and now you're in the stretch, and now you're starting to panic a little bit. You can't find it. But if you just take your time, between pitches and allow yourself to calm down, slow your heart rate down, and it helps you to refocus as well. And, really just you allow your natural ability to take over, and the stuff that you've actually prepared for mechanically, physically between starts to get in a good rhythm. You try to establish that rhythm before the game in your bullpen sessions, and then what you do is you just trust it when you get out of the mound, and then let that take over. So Harvey's he seems like he's a pretty emotional guy, gets into it. So he'd be a guy that I'd watch that first inning just to see if the ball's elevated or if he's able to keep the ball down in the strike zone. His breaking ball, is he overthrowing his breaking ball? First inning I think tonight is going to be a big inning for Matt Harvey.
Even though how great Harvey has been for this team ever since he's been a member of the Mets, there's been a lot of critics about him this year, the way he's went about handling that innings limit, especially through his agent, Scott Boras, where he originally didn't want to go to that six-man rotation, then wanted to limit his innings. Can this be a little bit of a statement game for Harvey? We know he's great and one of the up-and-coming young pitchers and a dominant pitcher in this game, but will he pitch with a little chip on his shoulder just to try to hush some of those critics tonight?
Yeah, more than likely, and that's just going to kind of add to the pressure of him going out there and pitching well. That's why I say that there's a lot at stake for him. Just the way, like you said, he's handled a lot of the situations, and the fact that he was late for the workout, and he's done some questionable things in his career to this point. And I think from a player aspect, as far as the best way to go out there and hush the critics and to get your teammates on your side is to go out and pitch well in a big game, which to me, this is the biggest game of the Mets season to this point. You got to win Game 3 here because you're going to get Kershaw in 4. So, a lot of pressure on Matt Harvey tonight for a lot of different reasons. So, I think that it is going to be a statement game for him. It's going to be his first game he's pitched in the playoffs for the Mets in the season where a lot of people didn't expect them to be where they're at right now, and they've done it because they've pitched so well. And so, the pressure will be on Matt Harvey.
We're wrapping up here with former MLB pitcher Shawn Estes. And Shawn, from what you've seen so far, we've seen a couple wild card games. We've now gotten a little bit into each series, as each series is now going to the team that originally was the road team. What do you think going forward? Who are the teams that you're looking at? Who just has it this postseason? Who's going to go to the World Series?
Well, so I've been way off to this point.
Haven't we all been over the years?
Golly, it's been terrible. I predicted Blue Jays Pirates. I felt like if the Pirates could get by the Cubs in that first game, which I knew was going to be a pretty tall task against Arrieta, but I felt like if they could get by the Cubs, they had the best team, I felt, from top to bottom. But obviously that didn't happen. So you wonder if the Cubs do have a little bit of magic there. I still not buying into that. So I still think the Blue Jays can do it. I saw the Giants in 2012 go down 0-2 to the Reds and go into Cincinnati and take 2 and then win Game 5, or go into Cincinnati and take 3. So it can happen. And they went on to win the World Series. I still think that the Blue Jays, I really do. I still think they have the best team in the American League. So I'm going to stick with the Blue Jays. I'm going to say the Blue Jays, they pull it off. And they take 2 more from Texas, and they go on to the World Series in the American League. And then in the National League, man, it's really, really hard not to like the Mets right now with what I've seen with their pitching. I mean, when you have those 3 arms that they have, those top 3 arms with DeGrom, Syndergaard, and Harvey, and even, I think Max is going to pitch as well. Is that right?
Yeah, he's going to pitch Game 4.
Yeah, and I really like that kid. I mean, gosh, the future of that organization with that rotation is pretty bright. So, pitching's going to win. Pitching's definitely going to win. You see it every year. It's how you pitch at this point in the year. If the Mets pitchers can continue to pitch like they have, especially the starters, I wouldn't be surprised to see them there. So, I'm going to say it's going to be. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say the Mets are going to win, and they're going to play the Blue Jays in the World Series.
So I know that's your prediction of Mets Blue Jays. You've played for a couple of the teams remaining in the postseason. Is there any rooting interest? Is that your rooting interest because those are your predictions? Maybe there are some players you're still close with or some organizations you have some certain ties with?
Well, I know one thing is that I'll never root for the Dodgers regardless of how good they are. Being that I played for the Giants for 6 years, and now I do analysis for, Comcast Bay Area, which is the Giant, which carries all the Giants games. So I can't go there. That's a tough one to do for me. So it's not based on, not necessarily. I'm really just kind of breaking it down from an analytical standpoint, and far as what I've seen so far in the playoffs and who I think has the best chance to be there. I mean, one of my best friends in the game that I played on the Giants with, Bill Miller, is the assistant hitting coach for St. Louis. So that's where if I was going with my heart, I probably would root for them at this point, just to see him get to the World Series. And as good as the Cardinals were this year, I just feel like that. I still feel like that Cubs series is flip a coin on that one. That Cubs Cardinals series. Even though the Cardinals are the better team, I just feel like the Cubs have some mojo going. And then I would love to see a Cubs Mets NLCS. Is pretty exciting to see. So. There's really no other reason other than the fact I think those are the two teams right now that just have something going on there. And the Blue Jays obviously have they have a tough pass, to win 2 more against Texas. But I think if they can get past this round, I think that they're going to carry that momentum right into the World Series. And so yeah, I just think Blue Jays Mets would be a fun series to watch.
Shawn, before we let you run, and last one here on the way out was Shawn Estes, who played for the Giants, Mets, Cubs, and a bunch of other teams. I told you this last time you were on with us. You're my favorite pitcher who has ever hit a home run in that retaliation up against Roger Clemens back in 2002, I believe it was. And Piazza also went deep in that game, and there was a pitch that got behind Roger. But I also want to take you back down memory lane real quickly, back to your Cubs days. You only played a year for the Cubs, I believe, and I know that there was a promise by Dusty to get you on the World Series roster if that Cubs team was to make it to the World Series, and we all know what happened with the Steve Bartman play. Where were you for the Steve Bartman play, and what do you remember about it?
Yeah, well, I was in the dugout. I was in the dugout, and in Wrigley Field, you get blocked out if you're in the home dugout. You get blocked out left field line, so you can't really see. So you kind of, when the ball's hit over there, you have to jump up and go to the front of the dugout to kind of try to see what was going on. So at the time, didn't see really what happened. And you remember, obviously, Wrigley Field before this year, you couldn't see a replay on the jumbotron or anything like that. So you had to go up in the clubhouse to kind of see what was going on the replay. So that's what happened. The play happened, and a bunch of us ran up into the clubhouse to see what was going on, and we saw the interference department, and like everybody, like Moises Salou, and I think everybody else on that Cubs team in the stadium that night, obviously pointed the finger right then and there unfairly to that guy, but it was just one of those things where you're like, gosh, at the time, I think a lot of people were thinking, it wasn't that big of an out. Obviously, in hindsight, it was a huge out, but I think as a player, even as a Cub fan, you understood that like every out is important, and if you're on a team that just has had difficult time winning World Series, and you feel like that there's nothing that can go wrong, for you to have a chance to win, and then that happening, you're kind of thinking, well, maybe this is the curse coming rearing its ugly head again, and so it's a tough thing for that guy. Was he to blame? No. Gonzalez cleared the ball at shortstop with double play ball that was the bigger play, but it does make you think quite a bit that there's something going on there.
Certainly does. Shawn Estes, thanks so much. We always appreciate talking to you.
All right, guys, no problem.